I'm very pleased to be here, and I'm going to share a few thoughts of how perhaps the world is changing, some of which you're very familiar with and some maybe you're less familiar with. Number one is you can have all of this material, so don't try and take notes, that's too hard. And some people have said that I speak a little bit like drinking out of a hose pipe. So we have to just get used to that. So this is where we're going for the next hour. And I'm very happy to take questions either as we go through this, you've got to try and stop me, or at the end. And I know what will happen at the end. You'll sit there and just stare at me. This is a sort of normal response. So try and think of a question or two. I'm sure Joe will manage that. But the first thing is, it's very obvious, there's more change coming, and you may believe this or not, than's been already happening in the last 100 years. So the speed of change is accelerating, and the volume of change is also accelerating. So we're in for a great deal of change and excitement. So as long as you enjoy that, that's what we're doing. If you like things to remain the same, this is slightly troubling. So when we did look at technology some years ago, we said data processing wouldn't last a year. I don't know about you, but computer systems in one way or another have altered nearly everything we do. So we're not very good at estimating when the technology arrives, how impactful it will be. Equally, when the telephone arrived, it was said by the world's largest electronic communication company, Western Union, that a telephone is inherently no use as a communication vehicle. So who has a telephone? Brilliant. It's mandatory to have a telephone. Everybody's got a telephone. You can't leave home without it. In fact, if you leave it at home, you go and get it. So we've got more telephones now on the planet than we've got people. And some young people have 2 and 3 and 4 phones. And I've discovered that some of you have 2 and 3 phones. So we're not very good at thinking about what technology might become. So how about the humble tin can? The humble tin can was created around 1810. It was in common use quite quickly afterwards. How long do you think it took before we actually devised something to open it?
80 years.
80 years. Idiot. No, we did it incredibly quickly. We did it in 48 years. So we carried on creating them, we filled them, we took them places, we explored new parts of the world, and we had no way of getting into it. Or we took out our dagger, or our axe, or our sword, and we bludgeoned our way into it, because that's what you did. Then somebody eventually realized this was a crazy thing, and we created what was looking like this, actually, a tin can opener. This is what we do with every new technology. We apply an old method to a new technology. The clever trick is to apply a new method to the new technology. So if you think it's hard already, it's even harder because you've got to change the business process to match the new technology. So it's exciting, yeah?
Yeah.
Where's the energy in the room? I'm going to get you to throw those around. Okay, there are around about 7 main things that are changing the way the world works. Obviously, globalization and how we communicate with each other, changes in the nature of work itself, demographics, people, where are we, who are we going to work with in the future, energy, transportation, technology. All of these things are changing very rapidly in their own right, and they are affecting each other. So if you look at what impact that has on companies, and if you ask people who are very deep thinkers, they say about 60% of the failure of the top companies is down to strategy. It's not about operations, it's not about numbers, it's about actually even doing the right thing in the right market. So actually getting our strategy right is key. And increasingly, Drucker's said that we will have markets that fail because the assumptions we make no longer apply. Our consumers, our customers have changed their mind on what they want to do, and the market's collapsed. Who stole my cheese, etc. But equally, half the companies that have failed in the last 10 years in the global 500 are down to digital models. So it's pretty bad news if we don't change, yeah?
Yeah.
These are real questions, and I'll have a real go at them. John Maynard Keynes, who is a well-known economist, said this: it's better to be roughly right than precisely wrong. And increasingly, we try and see a vision of the future 5 years out, and we say, we're aiming for that. And it'll never turn out to be exactly the way we think. So we need a general direction of travel, a direction we're moving towards, things that can happen on the way, but we want to be vaguely right, roughly right, not exactly wrong. And that's what's led so many people into trouble. So let's try and go through some of those main drivers of change for a moment. Number one is people. We are tremendously good at producing people. And we're getting better at keeping people alive. So when I was born, there were 2 billion people on the planet. When I went to work, there were 3 billion people. Today, there are 7. In 5 to 8 years' time, there'll be 8. And we might top out at 10, 12, 14 billion people. We're not quite sure where that ends up. So the good news is that we're good at keeping people alive. What's really interesting is the green bit on this chart are the developed economies, and this is everybody else. Brand new consumers in brand new markets with brand new money, spending sometimes for the very first time in places they didn't used to exist. Well, that's exhausting. And that's what's happening. The whole market in the world is shifting from mid-Atlantic over to the Asian markets. Very interesting move. As a consequence, we can see in the next 3 decades that we'll see around about 20, 30, 50, 80, 100, 200% growth in markets. Very easily massive, 200 and 300 times the economy. What's the size of the economy today, globally? That's a real question. My turn. 10 trillion? 20 trillion? Higher than 40? Ah, good, got one. Okay, it's around $80 trillion US. So we will have, in the next 3 decades, another $160 trillion of economic activity, and it is mostly not where it used to be. This is what's exciting. It's mostly in new markets, with new cultures, new value systems, new behaviors, new expectations, using new technology that we've never done before. Is it time to give up and go to the bar? It sounds exhausting, but that's what we've got to get used to. It's that degree of change that we've got to get used to. We're seeing new people becoming middle class by the millions every week in places like China and Indonesia and some parts of India and other parts of the world. So increasingly, more people are becoming middle class, spending money for the first time in traditional ways, and we need to be there early to capture that market. Equally, we're seeing a change in the general model that said the more people you've got as a country, the more economic activity you will achieve. For the first time ever since the last industrialization, we're seeing artificial intelligence replacing that old model. So you can remain quite a small population, but you can have quite high output. So South Korea is a pretty good example of that in so many ways. So let's think about people a bit more. Then we know we're an aging population, we know we're going to live longer, but what's really interesting, today we have around about 700 million people over 60. If you go forward 30 years, we'll have 2 billion. And as we get older, our views, our attitudes change, both politically and economically, and therefore we need to have a very different view of what our customers, our business partners look like. So, for example, you'll probably live till, let's look at you, I would say roughly 140, 160. So there's no reason to think you've done badly if you die before 140, on average. Yeah? And when you were born, some idiot told you you'd live till about 75. And roughly right now you think, well, okay, I've survived falling out of trees, I haven't crashed my first car, I haven't had those early things that mean that the averages are very low, so you've survived all of that. So there's a good chance now you can go on surviving another 10, another 20, another 40 years, because every 10 years or so we discover new remedies that allow us to live longer. So we've got plenty of time, but always we're challenged for time. I get that this morning. I've got a clock at the back telling me I've got to finish at a certain time. But actually, if you're going to live 150 years, maybe 200 years, and your children will probably live 300 years, we have to think differently about the world they're going to inhabit. And that's why 10 billion people is probably not that realistic. The chances are we're going to live a lot longer than that. And we may have 20 billion people on the planet, and it may be a little bit crowded. But the economy will be good. Or will it? So we'll have multiple generations. Already at work, we can imagine 5 generations. So we have web pages that have different icons for boomers, for builders, for Generation X, for Gen Y, the millennials, and even now the alphas, the new ones that are coming on the block. And I know Joe's going to cover this in a lot of detail at the end of the day, so I'm not going to spend very long on it, but each of these generational cohorts have different heroes. They have different music, different behaviors, and we're not very good at understanding people in other cohorts. In fact, we're quite bad at it. That's something we've got to do. In the future, of course, the younger ones, the alphas, they won't use screen. We've had screen ages, so the screen's going. You accept that? So the end of the screen is beginning to go, and eventually it disappears. At home, I'm sure you've all got Google Home or Amazon Alexa. Have you got this at home? Yes. Everyone? Yeah, great. So you already understand that our whole way of emerging and talking to our technology is changing. We're not simply going to hit the keyboard and practice as normal. Equally, consumers are fantastically good at making change. You're consumers, I'm consumers. You're also business partners, you have B2B customers, but we're consumers. We're very good at absorbing change. And the one thing we are is very disloyal. So we can be as loyal as you like to the best company in the world until a competitor turns up with a new app. And then we've left. Uber cars is a bit like that. We didn't sort of hate the taxi, but we hate the prices, and we quite like the Uber. Except I got stranded in town yesterday by an Uber who kept dropping me from a journey. So Uber aren't that clever. Equally, new customers are demanding new models. We don't no longer want to buy things in the same way. We want to consume things, we want to use things, so we increasingly want to have subscription models. We'll sign up for a service, but we don't necessarily want to take a product home. So what's really interesting about people is where we are, and if you like, what we've been doing and what we plan to do, and what we've been looking at and what we're interested in, and who's around us is the new paradigm. And the amount of information you need for that is massive. So who's around you? Are you at the rugby club? Are you socializing? Are you at work? They'll probably work out that you're at a conference, you're all sitting still, you've all got badges for Sato. That's the commonality. So is this a good time to sell something to you about ice cream? Probably not, but it's a pretty good time to pick you up in the coffee break and try and impart on you some sort of product or service offering that these guys might even have. So the context we as human beings will be in will matter as much for B2B as it will B2C. It matters so much. Increasingly, even with all those people, we'll invent new ways to be in 2 places at once. So we'll have virtual reality, we'll have holograms, we'll even have robots. This one costs $250,000. You can hire her for $5,000 a week. She speaks 4 languages. She has emotional connection. And Actroid's been around a while. Or you can have Shakira 2, which I made up. I just thought she was prettier. Or you can have Clooney 1, and you can start overlaying the cult of celebrity on top of the automation and the robotics. So if you're in IT, this is something brand new that we're going to have to get used to, and it's coming now. And it isn't just cutting your grass or looking after your granny. These things are unbelievably important to the way we work in the world. So we've barely touched on technology. We've barely started. So let's have a look. The good news is, McKinsey say, this 4th industrial revolution, which is all about automation, is happening about 10 times faster than the last one, with 300 times the scale and scope. So it's about 3,000 times the impact at this time of change in our automation than we've ever had before. And we thought the Industrial Revolution was harder. Well, not that you lived through it, but if you had noticed what happened, it's a massive change with the steam engine, etc. This is an enormous change in our world, and we have to get used to it. Equally, only around about half, and slightly under half companies are ready to engage in this new world. And yet most of us understand that digital is now the last generation of change. So we're in the intelligent age, not the digital age. And before that was the information age. So we need to understand where we're at. It's no longer a question of digitizing things, it's a question of automating and adding intelligence to what we offer to our customers and the information we get as well. And of course there's social. Do we all belong in social networks? Yeah, cool. Yeah. This is so obvious, isn't it? What's interesting about social is in the next 5 to 7 years, it will become the norm for doing business. And it won't be one social media tool, it'll be a mix of social media tools. But it increasingly becomes the norm. So I don't suppose you use email anymore, do you? No one use email? You've all given email up? Who uses email? Oh, hands up. Who drives a 40-year-old car? A 40-year-old car? No? Okay. Interestingly enough, email is about 40 years old. It's heading for 50 years old. And the only reason we use it is we don't want to change. It's too hard. But we tend to work in projects. We tend to work in areas of geography. We tend to work with customers and solution sets, which are all around socializing ideas and communicating those ideas with each other and problem solving. Yet we still use email. It's really quite fun. So people are giving up email quite rapidly, and we need to learn to use new tools to communicate. That's your homework. How do you send an email on Facebook? So, with each new technology, we learn what it does, and we start using it to some degree, but then we realize we can do things completely differently. We don't have to continue to do things the old way. And this is the world we need to inhabit, changing the very nature of what we offer, not just how we offer it using digital tools. So, in the B2C world, we've all used Airbnb, we've used various real estate tools online, we've even used Uber taxis and travel services. All of these things have been around for quite a long time, and they're increasingly changing the way organizations work. What's interesting in B2B, there's new platforms, you probably use some of these. ThomasNet has 18,700 categories. TraderKey has 8 million customers. Amazon Business, in their first year, did $1 billion of business. So increasingly, platforms are changing the B2B world in this social tool world we live in. So we need to get used to working with these guys, and increasingly, they are moving from traditional areas of operation, and for example, taking out banking. I've said here, Amazon have lent more than $3 billion to their customers, and Alibaba are hollowing out banking to their customers in their world. So no one's prepared to stay in their traditional space. They're moving into new areas using the new tools they've got to do it. And hubs and platforms are the way ahead. Then there's the blockchain. Who uses blockchain? Who knows what it is? Do you want to come up? No. The blockchain is an unusual thing. It's got many of us talking about its potential, and its amazing potential to prevent fraud. So we'll be able to buy a house in an hour, not with thousands of hours of legal terms and people negotiating. We'll know exactly when it was built, with what material, with what changes that have been certified, what the ground's like underneath it, who the past owners were, how it's been modified, with the drawings, with the approval. We will know all of that detail because it won't get lost. Right now, for your home, you get nothing. You get the plan that shows its boundary, and that's pretty much it. You probably don't even get a diagram to say what's in it. And that's the most expensive thing we buy. You have to say, are we nuts? So in the future, the blockchain will carry all data relevant for certain sectors and change the very nature of what we do. What's interesting, by the way, on that is that over 10% of the world's transactions will run on the blockchain in the next 7 years. And that's when the tipping point genuinely happens. Equally socially, it's all about video. It's lovely to have text and words and images, but it's all about video. That's what we consume. I don't know if you've watched young people mend their cars, if someone does that. But in my day, we used a thing called the Haynes Manual. And you took it out and you read it, and you tried to understand what you had to do to mend your car. My kids have only ever balanced their phones on the car, and some sad person in the world has filmed themselves changing the very job they want to do. Are they mad? Why have they done that? But that's what they do. That's what we do. YouTube is now the largest search engine in the world and has just overtaken Google. So when you search, where do you go first? Google. Where do the young people go first? And that's a small example of how we're changing our attitudes. If you want to be in the place where they are, they're on YouTube, and they're moving beyond that. So blah, blah, blah. I'm not getting into that. Or we have augmented reality and virtual reality, and we can call it mixed reality, and we can have some amazing experience. Who's got a VR set at home? 2. Everybody queue up and get Joe's. Virtual reality is amazing, but the one thing they've worked out of why they can't sell virtual reality is you need to use virtual reality to experience virtual reality. They can't put an advert on the TV telling you how wonderful it is. And every time I've ever shown people how to use virtual reality, they stand there. And I go, you can move your head. Whew. And they find there's something else there. So virtual reality, within seconds, we get convinced that it's real. It doesn't even have to be that realistic. And I've done that with a lot of people. Equally, that whole world is changing about smartphones are yesterday. They are so yesterday, darling. We are not going to have smartphones in our pockets. That's the run-out business. We're not going to have that. We're going to have things like Secret, which don't look entirely like this anymore. But it's outside technology. It's waterproof technology. You can wear it in the bath. You can take it into a rainstorm. It's the first time we're getting rid of these screens that we lug around with us that cost us hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars, to carry somebody else's landscape around. Bracelets, headsets, you name it, we're going to use everything. Increasingly, we're going to have things semantic. It'll be in the atmosphere. We'll talk to our technology. It will talk back to us. And increasingly, that will show us the end of the apps economy. If you remember why we had apps in the first place, is the internet became too hard. You could never remember all those URLs or store them or save them. So we had apps that made it two-way communication. How many apps have you got on your phone? 50? 100? When you upgrade it, or it upgrades, you find you've got 160 apps. You go, what are they? I only ever use 3. So increasingly, we've got more and more and more of these things. And now you can get apps that integrate apps. And the world's lost. It's too hard. Speak to it. Tell me what I need to know, and that's it. Everything will be mobile. Increasingly, we'll have headsets that finally work, that actually stop getting us called glass holes when we wear our Google Glass in public places. These things died a death. They were too expensive, and they had cameras, and people didn't know what you were looking at or whether you were filming them. But there are versions of this that are already being used, and there are versions that will come out, and we all think they're fantastic. Equally, VR sets. Zuckerberg bought the company, and not all of them are about fun fairs, disorientating us. Those things are huge fun, but people are increasingly using VR for surgery, for exploring the framework of bodies, for designing properties, to doing engineering works. Virtual reality is a fantastic way of immersing yourself in a product or service. And this poor guy is struggling. Equally, telepathy is already present. We already have the ability to attach ourselves to the neurons in the brain and get good understanding, good level of understanding of what you're thinking. So beware what you're thinking when you wear one of these headsets, because they will display where you're at. So our whole notion of communication will change dramatically. Equally, if we think about all of that, we're going to have more and more devices measuring everything around us. Isn't it frustrating now? You can't sometimes get a measurement of what you want. You've got to struggle with the old analog world to find out how big something is, rather than just saying, how large is my car, or how wide is my drive? Why doesn't it know how wide my drive is? Why have I got to go and measure it? Everything will be increasingly measured. How many sensors have you got in your house? 10? 20? Just need more. Who's got more? Lights, how many lights have you got IP addresses in your lights? Everyone's got smart lights, yeah? Yeah? Yeah, well, you can turn them on by a voice. Turn the dining room lights on, put them on 50%, make them go red. All of these things are normal, and this is the world we live in. Very adaptable world. Increasing numbers of sensors. And if you go forward 10 years or thereabouts, even less, we'll probably interact with sensors quite passively sometimes, about 4,500 times a day. And we'll barely know we're doing it, but we will want to do it because it'll make our lives easier. And things that make our lives easier, we tend to interact with. Equally, the sensors that we're going to have on or around or in our bodies that you can get today are already adding half a year to your life. Now, when you're young, you don't care about adding half a year to your life because you're invulnerable to anything that can possibly happen. As you get older, you might want half a year added to your life. And this is what's happening with new technology. We can add a lot to your life by simply assessing how well you are. So in the future, when someone says, "How are you?" you'll say, 78. 2 weeks ago, I was 73, but I'm getting better. 78, how are you doing that? Well, I've got blah, blah, blah. It'll be a number. And the one thing we know about human beings, when you can measure something, we look at it all the time. We love it. Even in America, when they allowed 401ks, their pension funds, to be available online, people were looking every day at the state of their pension fund. Really? Why would you do that? Can you imagine if it's the state of your body? How well am I? Even better, how well are you? I can look you up. No, that's bad. But the Internet of Things is a fantastic world, but the Internet of Nano is already beginning to happen. So here we have tens of billions of devices that we swallow or have injected, that perform operations, that this one's designed, it doesn't look like this, but it's designed to find individual cancerous cells of a certain type, remove them one by one, and eject themselves out of the body. Inside engineering is one of the ways ahead. Cutting people open is going to be so yesterday. We will look back on this age of cutting people open and think, we are nuts. Why would you ever do that? Because nanoengineering is one of the many, many lines of technology that will transform our lives massively. So, all of that going on together, you end up with a view that IBM have taken, that you could double data in the world every 11 hours. Double data in the world every 11 hours. And they don't call it, looking at companies and say, what assets have you got under management? They say, what data have you got under management? One of the views ahead is this data will be what allows us to use artificial intelligence or some of the new tools, and without it we get nowhere. So it becomes incredibly important. So AI could double growth perhaps, or increase productivity, because of the way we use intelligence. Equally, marketing is saying that it could revolutionize how we interact with each other, even in a B2B world. But so few people are saying we're interacting with artificial intelligence now. So how many of you use artificial intelligence in your business now? I don't either. The good news is that artificial intelligence is being built into the next releases of software. So even if you don't know it, you'll start using AI before you realize it. And the tools behind the tools you use will be driven by machine learning, cognitive computing, artificial intelligence, call it what you will, that's gradually creeping in. And one of the ways could be how you segment your customer base. We've done all the usual segmentation. How about it's about emotion? Your customer is feeling a bit unhappy right now. Am I going to phone them? Should I visit them if they're really sad, or they're euphoric and they're delighted? So emotion is one of the areas where a lot of effort is going into, and you need to know a lot of data about someone to know the meaning and the context of emotion. So the sort of way you look at the world, the way you look at your customer base, the way you look at companies you work with, is going to be much more around emotion, he says. All sorts of emotions, whether it's love or any of those. These are going to matter a lot as you integrate with people. And we don't use emotion in business almost at all. And emotion will be one of the key drivers allowing us to integrate with people and interact with people. So most companies still haven't got a chief data officer or a chief analytics officer. But that's what we're going to need, is how do we make sense of all that data? Equally, there are very many people who think that data, perhaps, is the way we'll make a living. So when we no longer have a job, which I'm not announcing, by the way, but if we don't have a job, then maybe we make money by sharing and selling my data online. And I may sell my data to 500 companies, and I may have a brokerage that does that. And you'll suddenly discover you can make tens and hundreds of dollars, maybe every day, as you've taken your data and shared it with people. So today it may be about blogging or vlogging. Tomorrow it may be about how you use your data is going to make you the next millionaire. So this is quite a fascinating thing. Right, that's a little bit about data and how we might creep up on us. So about 3D printing. 3D printing, Well, 3D fabrication and 4D fabrication are unbelievable. How many of you have used 3D printers? 1, 2, 3, 4. Brilliant. Go and talk to those 4 afterwards. 3D printing is stunning what you can do with it. So maybe in the future we say we need more food, but we waste 40% of the food in our food chain. Maybe we'll fabricate our own food. Today I think I fancy steak. So I'll make a steak and cook it, because that's already being done. MIT did that 10 years ago. Or maybe I'll make a heart, because I'm feeling a bit dicky. I'll have a spare heart. And that's already being done. But it can't be installed because it doesn't quite work. But the very people who used to make new organs for humans using wax frames are now using 3D printers. And they know this will work. Equally, for example, components for your home or that no longer exist are being fabricated by department stores. So even things like that can be incredibly useful. Or maybe I'll get a new dress or a skirt or some trousers or some shoes or some trainers, or increasingly I might want a guitar or anything. I can make anything out of glass or stone or plastics or carbons and manufacture those together with no waste very efficiently. I can change the way I manufacture. So this is the largest printer in the world, currently 7.5 meters by 7.5 meters, probably the size of that. And it made this, which is the largest thing so far made with a 3D printer. And it's a 5-story, using American terms, apartment block. This is the same company that the year before made 10 houses in an hour. And these people at the bottom are all looking to one side, and they're all looking at this, which is a home that is perfectly printed inside and out, and it took a day. And it's 1,100 square meters. And it's made of crushed paste, crushed building material, made into a paste and built as a building. Really interesting way we can make buildings. So maybe you have a new home, you can have it built in an hour. Or I'll have another home, 2 hours. So I'll have a refugee camp. I'll build homes. And I'll crush it up afterwards and make it into something else. Because all of these things tend to be reusable. So 3D fabrication's amazing. Well, in the UK, for example, building regs are an amazing, building regulations have an amazing break on what we can do using new technology. For example, in Britain, we still have a building reg that says for every new housing estate, you have to put copper wire in the ground. Then we dig it all up and put fiber optic in. So building regs are nuts. We still put up clay tiles where almost the same cost is photovoltaic tiles that look the same. There is almost no additional cost, but we still put clay tiles up. So the issue isn't necessarily can we do it, it's is the regulation and everything else lined up so we can do it and will do it. So that's a massive break, I'm afraid. But it is being done, and the good question is, in countries where they don't have those sophisticated rules, which are there for good purpose, they can use it straight away. And this is what's really interesting. And in some parts of the world, they're 3D fabricating stratospheric satellites to provide 4G telephone networks and flying these things off as soon as they've built them. And they stay in the stratosphere for 5 years. So it's amazing how these things are being used. Or we have drones and pilotless and automatic vehicles. Even most of our planes, as you know, are automatic anyway. The captain's there just to make us feel a bit more reassured. Asia Air, one of the newest airlines in the world, pilots are not allowed to touch the controls above 3,000 feet. They are banned from touching the controls. In fact, many of them are trying to stop pilots touching the controls on landing because they damage the aircraft. Most systems are better, but they do need to give the pilots something to do and some practice. So it's really interesting how the old rules are not working. How would you be happy being on an airliner with no captain and no pilots? And that's why they're there. So they're very comforting and reassuring, and we have 2 of them just to make sure everything's really safe. But they mustn't touch the controls. Increasingly, we have ships and all sorts of aircraft, and the consequences of having automated vehicles is that the roads can be massively narrower. They're unlikely to hit each other in quite the same way that we like to hit each other. For the same time that one vehicle is crashed into, in an automated way and it makes the news, we have 10,000 crashes. So we are very, very good at hitting each other on the road. We have car parks that we put our cars in and don't use. Our cars are not used for nearly 90% of their life. They sit clogging up the road or the car park or the cities and depreciating. Nuts. So let's share these vehicles, what we want, when we want it, not owning it and depreciating it. And in America, for example, they're saying that this will lead to the road system, for example, in Los Angeles, this is 30% of the landmass of Los Angeles, 30%. And we can remove 2/3 of that if we automate our vehicles. So that's what's really exciting. You don't need roundabouts. You don't need traffic lights, because they know what's coming, and they just don't hit each other most of the time. So they just work through. We only need these things for human beings. We don't need them for automation. And that's what's exciting about the future. The layout of the way we have worlds is different. In your home, you may have a garage. Why? In the future, you won't have a driveway or a garage, because you won't need one. So the very nature of our homes, our cities, our buildings, our roads are all about to change, which is just as well because we need about $75 trillion of infrastructure in the next 10 years. Or do we? We'll just do things differently. We'll have an amazing integrated transport system. If you've been to Helsinki recently, you can buy a ticket for a destination and you don't know how you're going to get there. It might be a combination of taxi, train, tram, vehicle, you don't know. You buy a ticket for a destination, and it works out the most efficient way of moving you from one place to the other. And that's the way technology will tend to make us work in the future. It will just ask you what your destination is, what is your goal, and then show you how to achieve it, not the processes that we quite like. So there's also a bit on work. I thought I'd just share this with you, because that's going to change a little bit, work. What's really interesting, work has been changing for 100 years anyway. So first we changed manual work with diggers, made us more efficient. Then we changed clerical work with data processing, and those people no longer sit at their desks writing in books. Then we changed managerial decision making, and that altered rapidly. Now we're changing professional work for the first time ever. So that's what's really interesting about this change. And it's augmenting what we do, making us more productive, and also replacing some of the drudge things we do. What's quite interesting is we like doing the drudge, easy things. So when we write a list of 10 things to do in a day, psychology says we tend to do the easy ones first if we can, and then we leave the hard ones for later. The future is really exciting. You don't get the easy ones anymore. You just get the hard ones. That's something to look forward to, isn't it? Every day, another problem. But the good news is, of course, we need to change our attitude on how you spend that day, how you work up to it. Maybe you throw paper at each other. Maybe you go for a walk. Maybe you have a rest. Maybe you divert your thinking. Maybe you get creative. So we won't do work in the same way, and we certainly won't go to work in a similar way. But if you ask people even today, about half folks say, yeah, we'd like digital assistants to help me do my job. I'd like more artificial intelligence to help me become more productive. So that's dead cool. We're already increasingly accepting new forms of technology at work. And in the future, working could be simply a conversation between you and someone else. And that is interpreted as a new policy, a new strategy, a new approach, a new selling plan, a new technology, a new design. It's simply by having a conversation. It might be one conversation, it might be 20, or it might be 20 million that are merged together to find the best of what you need and produce it on a 3D printer. You could come up with a new idea and fabricate it this afternoon and take it to market this afternoon in a digital corporation that's raised its own funds. That's so exciting. Equally, around about 80% of jobs that our kids are going to have, if you've got any kids in your family around 10, or maybe less, most of the work they're going to do doesn't exist. So you can't ask the careers masters, you can't ask the careers advisors what they're going to do. They don't have a clue. Trust me, I work with schools and universities a lot. They do not understand that most of these jobs don't exist. In fact, if you ask these career advisors, what are those jobs, they can't tell you. But the good news is we've got several hundred you can have a look at. So we've got a vague idea. So maybe it's body part maker. Who wants a career as a body part maker? We're already making jaws and skulls and legs and arms. We're already doing that out of titanium and other materials. It's already done all the time. Increasingly soft materials will change. And if you've got a real drinking problem, you might have 3 or 4 livers in your time. So I suggest you take up as a hobby making liver. It's a good thing. And if you make too many, you can cook it. That sounds like cannibalistic. I didn't mean that. Pretend it's a cow's. Genetically modified crops is something we're going to be doing. A farmer, a pharmaceutical expert, a geneticist, maybe it's age-old wellness consultant, because we're not doing very well staying older. We need to get well longer to get older. So, and of course, one of the biggest jobs is a science ethicist. Just because we can do something, should we do it? And that's one of the biggest problems we face going forward. Maybe we're a virtual lawyer because a lot of IP, intellectual property, new ideas, thinking, is created in virtual space. And therefore, we need virtual lawyers who create real law. People are now talking about establishing firms off-planet because we can avoid nations' laws and maybe base them on the moon or elsewhere. Bonkers, I know, but there you are. It's happening. Waste data handlers. Many kids are very profligate with what they do with their data since they're young, sharing everything online. One of the new careers is tidying that up. So when they're up for their next promotion, when they're going for the next job, and all the search consultants look at social media for everyone's career, for their choice of who to interview, and if they find videos of you they find distasteful, you just don't get interviewed. And that's already happening. So we need to declutter what's out there for us, and we need to have data declutterers. Or maybe we just never work again. So universal income is a way that we get a share of the money that the robots are making. So we all just get paid to stay at home. Who likes that idea? Okay, I'm not going to tell you who. The boss is in the room. Look, the issue is this, is that the way the world works, the way it's configured, the way we operate it, how we share the rewards of all of that effort are really open for discussion. And that's sort of where the world is in many ways. So we have a choice. We can change and adopt some of that, and very much more, or we can not change. And there's nothing wrong with not changing. As I say to many boards of directors of major corporations, not changing is great. We need companies to die. The trees in the woods need to die to allow the young ones to grow up. So we do need FTSE 500 companies to die, and they're very good at it. They always know what's coming. They've often invented the new products or services, but they hate them. They're lower margin, or they're easier for people to copy, and they quite like the old world. We can't do that. We've got to show our customers what the new world looks like and lead them towards it and buy our product while we're at it. So, Chambers said this at Cisco, it's a brilliant truism. Around about 40% of companies will die in the next 10 years. And already 50% of global Fortune 500 have gone in the last 10 years. So this is a reasonable statistic. So it's a bit like saying, from there, you're all finished. You might as well leave. Off you go. You've got a future, because you're hooray! Boo! This is like a pantomime now. But that's the degree of it. We love to ignore things until it's too late. We don't want to be at the bleeding edge, but we do want to be at the leading edge. We do want to think about change. We want to tell our customers what we're thinking about and let them know we care about what's coming in the future, because they need that as much as we do. Equally, most of the research that we've picked up says that we're no better at understanding change or challenge and digital than we were before the crash. So we have not improved how we take on new ways of doing business. But 80% of senior executives say AI is key for their future. You go, well, how do you square the circle of that? I don't like change. It can kill me. I'm no better than I was, but I've got to use artificial intelligence in my company. Wow. We've just established we almost do none of that now. We barely know what it is. And we certainly don't know how to apply it. But we're saying 84% of people running business say we're going to use it to be more productive, to be more performant, to be more creative, to engage better, so we better get on to what it is fairly quick. And Wayne Gretzky said this. He was a famous Canadian ice skater. Skate to where the puck will be. So many companies skate to where it is now, because that's frightening enough, yeah? It's all changing, it's digital, it's horrible, I want to get off. I get that completely. But actually, it's digital and it's intelligent, and we've got to engage with that. We've got to aim for the hard thing. You know, we don't have to get it precisely right. As Kane said, we've got to get it roughly right, so we know what general direction we're traveling in, but we certainly can't ignore it. Otherwise, we just become part of that percentage who are happy not to change. So, the first thing is us. What's our attitude to change? So rather than being defensive, like so many companies that are no longer with us, and I won't mention names, you know them as well as I do, we've got to engage with the new economy, engage with new tools, engage with new startups, engage with new networks, engage with understanding what these things are, because we might as well. Because if you're going to live for another 40 or 50 or 60 years, you're going to see a lot of change. So we might as well get used to the fact we're going to have to move for the technology. Our mobile phones are finished. I'll put a bucket out round a minute, we'll throw them away. All mobile phones will be thrown in the bucket today, and we'll move on. Today, going on, no one will use email ever again. These are ridiculous. That's not how it works. But we've got to learn that email is dead. It started in 1972. There are new tools that are much, much better. In fact, they're up to 9% more productive to use once you've got the hang of it. And that's the issue. Then to say, where do you fit in with all this? What's my role? What's our role? What can we do in this sharing, intelligent, data-rich, transformative world? What's my role? Where do I fit in? And that's where the thinking comes in. And then use some of these technologies, try them out, experiment, be playful. It's one of the most important things we do, is try them out, and you'll find the nuance of what you think is important. And seeking partners is valuable in this amongst anything else. We can't have a monopoly of wisdom. We need to find folk who'll help us think about what we're going to be using in the future. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What impact? And then think about changing the process. If you've brought new technology and not changed the process, you've just wasted your money. So new technology, same process, waste of money. Is new technology, new process enabled by the technology, go to market. Very different proposition. Outrun the competition. And finally, think about services. It's all about services. Even though products are the mainstay of what we sell, the way we sell them, the way that people consume their use, is so often these days through services, managed services at that. And the one thing I would say is, if you haven't already got one somewhere in your midst, a chief experience officer or augmented reality producer or lead data analyst or a bot developer are roles that we're going to hear a lot about in the next 6 to 8 years, and we'll need to understand who they are and what they can bring and how do we engage with them, because they sort of get how this works. And the last slide, if you've got people in your organization who are creative, have any of you got creative people in your organization? Yeah, no arms for that, but yeses. I heard a yes over here. It's good. Creative, intelligent, thoughtful people who love to explore new areas, encourage them. Give them attention. Give them some money. Let them go to a show. Have them come back, tell us the relevance of some of those new things they're finding out about. They can be your headlights. They're an amazingly cheap and systemic source of insight for your organization. So network them together, come have them spend time with the boss, share views of what they think will happen. And it doesn't have to be an age cohort thing, it's about attitude. And we have a tool which I'm going to make available to you, which is at the bottom after this show. This tool will tell you what your personal attitude is to change. I won't look at the results, I promise. And nobody here will see the results, only you will see the results. And you'll either be a manager, which is fantastic, you drive out value, or you're a leader and you take people to the new area you need to go to, or you're an entrepreneur and you like discontinuous thinking, you like change. And that's the sort of view it'll give you. Where are you on that scale? So that's what I leave with you. I also think we need to externalize look outwards, look amongst each other. How can we help each other be successful in the future? And that's enough from me. Thank you very much.